Hello folks! Welcome to the Poly Champions YouTube. This is a replay review of a bullet tournament game. You'll see a great example of a pro matchup on an unusual tribe and map combination, Kickoo Drylands. Chris explains how to use archers in this setting, how to set a trap for a rider siege, and when to take population growth even if border expansion can get you more giants. This game was also broadcast live. The link to the live recording with commentary and a link to the replay is in the description. Let's review the game.
Hi, I'm Chris, the team leader of Kraken here on Polychamps. I've been playing Polytopia for about 6.5 years now, and I've been on the server for 2 of those years. My opponent in this Bullet Finals is Galadro, though we call him Gala. He's a pro player for Jets, and he's very experienced. It was really solid play on both sides. It really came down to a few small mistakes, a little bit of passiveness on the side of Gala, and just very solid play from me to make sure that he couldn't remove the advantage that I gained. And to kind of explain what I mean by that, I want to quickly turn off the fog and explain how these tiny maps tend to play out. So there's 7 villages. This is very, very common for tiny maps. And so what you get a lot of the time is a 4 versus 3. Notably, in this game, I'm going to be able to get the 4 villages. That is going to give me an advantage in economy, as well as the ability to produce more units. Without further ado, let's get this replay started. In bullet tournaments, the host skips turn 0 to help with balancing. So Gala's actually playing first here. He doesn't have much in the way of resources. So for him, there's not too many options in terms of what he wants to do with his capital. For me, on the other hand, I have obviously the 2 fish, but more importantly, 3 animals and 3 forests. It tells me one of 2 things. It tells me either I'm going to go for archery this game, or it tells me I'm going to go for math. I had the better overall capital resources here. As we'll see, Gala has a very, very nice second city. So here, the standard opening, we both get workshop. Both exploring and finding our first few cities here. Gala goes for the standard opening here of hunting and forestry prior to capturing his second city. He's got exactly 5 resources of those types on his second city, which allows for the level 3 upgrade, which is exactly what people are looking for when they are choosing what technology they want to get. On my end, I also get pretty fortunate here because my second city has mostly animals and forests, and my third city happens to be right there, which is a perfect spot because there's shared sawmill spots between my cities, as in the forests are shared between multiple sawmills if I end up getting those. And it's situated very close to my capital and my second city, so I can defend more easily if I get attacked. In general, on tiny maps, the center city is the one that is the hardest to hold because your opponent will have cities along the edge. We see this play out almost immediately. Gala explores towards the center with his second warrior, immediately finds me, and this is a play that is very common. You hit the warrior on the city, because then if you have another full health warrior in the fog, you can siege, even if they capture the city. So it's a very nerve-wracking situation to be in, to have a hold on that center city, because at any time your opponent could put pressure on it. Gala does a little bit of chopping to get that workshop.
Why do you think Gala got a workshop and not an explorer?
Okay, so if we go back to his perspective, let me go to the end of his turn, actually. So the explorer here has 2 options. Option 1 is it goes east. Option 2 is it goes south. However, if we look at the spread of tiles that are like close to that city, it's more likely for it to start going south. And more importantly, Gala knows where I am
Yeah.
because of where this warrior is. He knows I'm in the north corner. If he wanted to get an explorer, he'd want that explorer to go north.
Yeah.
So he decides correctly to get a workshop here because the economy is going to be much more important for him. There are two common openings with Kickoo. One is hunting and forestry, and the other is riding. Fortunately for me, and fortunately for a fun game, in my opinion, Gala went hunting and forestry instead of riding. Riding is always a very spiky game. It's very aggressive, and those games do tend to end quite quickly. If he had gone riding and I had played well, I would have still been able to defend. It just would have been a situation where either he gets riding and succeeds in capturing the middle city, or he gets riding and fails to capture the middle city, and the game is over. Because when you go for riding, you make the choice to sacrifice future economic development for an aggressive unit in the early game. That's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
I decided not to go for forestry. I was very paranoid that he went riding. Gala and I have played in the past. He can be an aggressive player on Tiny. So I decide to take no risks. I get hunting, but I don't get forestry. I get archery. And that's because should Gala have a rider that's going to siege that city if I capture it, my only choices of unsieging are either going riding myself or going archery. And I vastly prefer archery in this position because I have really good animals and really good forests, which means I eventually want to get forestry. And riding is not going to help me with that at all. So I decided to get archery.
Yeah, because riders can't move through forests, right? That's a terminal tile. And archers, not only you get archers, but having so many forests, you can use the forests and get the defense bonus for your other units.
Exactly. Gala gets climbing for the ruin. This is an incredibly common play on Tiny because ruins are so crucial that a single ruin can change the outcome of the game. And the climbing is going to give him extra vision as well. Now that I know that Gala hasn't gone for riding, and I know this because he didn't siege, and because of the fact that he's got the second city and a warrior on a mountain, he wouldn't have the economy to afford climbing if he hadn't gone for an eco tech on his last turn. I now know that I'm safe to continue expanding. So if you'll notice, I had the option on this turn to move my warrior onto the village. But if I did so, and he went riding, I wouldn't have been able to hold the middle city, no matter what I did. So I have to keep the warrior there. But now I can expand. Gala gets a star ruin here. And what he's setting up for is math. I'm going to see that play out very shortly. I'm collecting vision, and I get myself forestry to eventually grow my eco. Chop a little bit for an explorer here, which is notable. We talk about like what classifies a good explorer. I actually think I got more lucky than I did make the right choice. Getting the explorer in the middle city, the idea is that I need the vision now to attack him because I have archers and I know that he hasn't gone for riding. However, if you'll notice, it's kind of risky. The explorer could potentially go into the east corner and just get lost, and I'd be totally out of luck because the only tile that is close to the city right now, as in within one tile, is in the east. So I basically have to bank on the explorer going south. And I decide I'm going to do it anyway because the vision could be a game-winning resource for me right now. So here we go. We have math from Gala, and he's going to get his economy going really well. 2 level 3 cities, plus he's setting up for giants. So he's
And the
in a
only
pretty good
way
spot.
he could have afforded that is because he got the stars from the ruin. So he was also lucky.
Yes. So in this situation, I see he has math. And now I know that I can't afford to wait. And what I mean by that is I can't sit back and try to win by having more cities. I have to press my advantage now, because if he manages to build a catapult in one of his cities and defend it with warriors, he could get a lot of value from that catapult. And my archers are at the moment out of range, so I need to bring them closer. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, is I'm poking at his warriors. I'm making him sweat a little bit by killing his units. And most of all, I'm preventing him from building catapults, because I would get a free hit on them with my archer if he did so. Gala now transitions into riding. This is the most common response to archery, is riding. He can't afford to build a catapult in one of his cities, so he decides to go for a different unit that I'd rather not sacrifice an archer to hit. I also go for riding here, and this is because I want to go for roads. So I go roads so that if he goes roads himself, I'll have an answer. I will have an ability to kill those riders if they try to bounce into the north. He goes for another workshop. I don't know. I think maybe he wanted to get an explorer there. It could have gone backwards, but there's only 4 fog tiles in the back. So the explorer, after exploring those tiles, if it went that way in the first place, would have then gone into the north. And we'll see just how important it is for him to have that vision in a second. The key mechanic of explorers is they're searching for fog tiles a maximum of 4 tiles away from where they are. So let's say the explorer starts out by going west, which is like the most obvious, it's the most probable tile it would go to. So if the explorer does that, it explores those 3 tiles. Then it'll go west one more, explore that tile. The closest fog tile then is the tile in the south corner. It'll go towards that. And at that point, it'll have used about 5 moves. Explorers have a total of 15 quote unquote moves, which means they will move 15 times before they eventually go poof. So he will still have about 7 to 8 moves with the explorer in my area, exploring the vision in the east. So most likely. So I think an explorer is actually quite safe for him here. But workshop is still a safe bet. He does have climbing. He could eventually get the vision that he's looking for, but there's not a lot of mountains on this map. And I'm kind of foreshadowing here in the sense that he's going to really wish he had the vision that he did, that he could have gotten from the explorer. I like to call this phase of the game sort of the poking phase, where neither of us really want to make a big attack at the other one. We just kind of want to increase our kill totals. We're both looking at this killer task to eventually get the Gate of Power. Again, more poking. I'm bouncing my riders back here because I want to put roads down. I'm preparing roads, and those 2 tiles are going to have roads on them to connect my cities together. So by bouncing my riders back there, they're both very safe, and they're going to be on roads. And then Gala leaves open probably, I think, the single biggest mistake of the game here. So in this position, Gala has to make a choice. I've left this archer open for him to kill, but it's a bit of a trap, because in doing so, as we'll see from my perspective in just a moment here, he left the city open because he had to go for roads. But I can grab the siege here, and then I go roads afterwards because I want to make it very uncomfortable for him to unsiege. And what I mean by that is This warrior is providing zone of control to Gala's only road tile in his setup that he can use. So what he needs to do here is kill my defense bonus warrior. So kind of a pretty devastating play. Less stars per turn. Very poor trade for him because those warriors are now easy to kill. And it's going to set him back. He's left open all these units that are just very low HP. So now I'm like, okay, I'll take those free kills. I'm connecting my cities together with roads, as I said. And now my riders are very mobile. I'm going to go for a giant here to get my economy up. Getting a veteran rider just to have a unit that is able to take a few more hits. Riders are going to be hitting units constantly, so having more HP is a good thing. And I prepare for another giant in the center city.
I have a question. I want to ask about, in your capital, how you chose with population versus border growth. Like that you're just like, I want a faster giant. I'm not going to save up for math.
Yeah, so border growth in tiny games is something where you need to not evaluate how many resources you have, but the immediacy of the benefit from the border growth. I have 6 population in my border growth, potentially 8 if you include a sawmill. It's true that that is one more giant, but I have a 4-3 city advantage against Gala. I know that my economy is going to be better once I start leveling up my cities. Thus, an additional level for another giant is probably not necessary this game because I'm going to have at least 2 giants just from my cities alone, and getting those giants up faster puts more pressure on Gala. If I get border growth this turn, I won't be able to get a giant, and that actually loses 2 stars per turn this turn because the monument allows me to level up not just my capital, but also my middle city. So by getting a faster giant, I actually secure myself additional stars per turn that I wouldn't get if I went for border growth. I don't want him to be able to leisurely kind of sit back and build up a huge defense of catapults. I want to say, here's a giant. It's coming for your capital right now. You better deal with it. If I go border growth, I'm basically saying, oh, I'm going to get a giant. I'll get it eventually, though. You don't have to worry about it. So I'm kind of pushing this game toward its conclusion. Whereas if I didn't go population growth and went border growth, I would be giving Gala a window of opportunity to set up a defense because he doesn't have one right now.
Do you think it was a mistake for him to expand his borders in his capital?
No. He needs the border growth. See, that's the difference. I can get a giant in my capital without border growth. But for him, he needs the border growth to get a giant. And same here. He needs a border growth to get a giant. And very nice use of the monument here for him to get his second giant as well. And this is where the game's dynamic is changing. Let me go back a little bit. I have enough vision here to know that he has 2 giants. And I realize immediately that my east city is incredibly weak. I can't get a giant in it. I need to be able to set up a defense. So I start building up more units to do so. And we can see Gala immediately recognizes that and starts going for it. And now my response is mathematics. I have to lock down the city somehow, and my threat here is pretty obvious from my perspective. If he moves his giant forward, I'm going to kill it. Unfortunately for Gala, and this is what I'm talking about when I'm foreshadowing, this is how much vision he has. Right now he's staring at an empty little city on my side. What could I possibly do? And he makes a small misplay here that I think really hindered his position. It was possible for him to move onto the East Mountain instead of moving north. And I think this move north really made this position impossible for him to win. Also, the defense bonus, most importantly, this is the most important part. It's out of range of the catapult by 1 tile. So I can only hit it with my 2 archers. That's it.
Yep.
So that might have been a crucial mistake on his part. And he goes mining here to get additional giants. And pushes in. And the idea for him here is he's sending the kitchen sink. He's basically saying, I'm throwing everything I have at you. I've got a catapult. I got 3 giants. My units are moving in as well. I'm putting the onus on you to respond. And I'm like, all right, I will. And I kill the giant. And I do so without losing a single unit. And unfortunately for him, that was basically it. There was nothing that he could have done, and that was the game. And math is not something we see as a third technology for Kickoo very often. We usually see math later, like when I got it. So having that star ruin early allowed for a really unique game where both sides went for differing strategies, and the end result, I think, was pretty cool.
Thanks so much for taking the time to talk me through it. This was really interesting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. It helps us a lot. You can find a link to the live broadcast of this game from the Bullet Tournament and a link to the game replay in the description. Join the Poly Champions Discord. Get on a team. The link to the Discord server is also in the description. Take care. See you on the next one.